Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
Bad things happen in the world. That's just the reality of life. However, when tragedies or accidents begin to have things in common, people very quickly begin connecting the dots. And of course, when these accidents happen on a film set, especially a horror film, people go crazy, throwing theories about evil entities and demons around left, right, and center. So today, on Top 10 Beyond the Screen, I'm going to be counting down our list of the top 10 scary, cursed movies you should never watch. Let's jump in. Coming in at 10, the Amityville Horror 1979. Released back in 1979 and starring James Brolin, the father of Josh Brolin, don't get them confused, and Margot Kidder, the film of course follows newlyweds who move into a large home where mass murder was committed, and quickly begin to experience strange manifestations which drive them away. Now whenever you're making a horror movie based on a true story, you know it's going to be creepy, and this case is no different. The Amityville Horror is based on the paranormal experiences of the Lutz family after moving into a haunted house on 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York. Prior to the Lutz family moving in, previous resident Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot and killed his entire family. The Lutzes claim that they were forced out of the home by some sort of evil entity. Now, the true story faced a lot of criticism, with many claiming it was fake, even James Brolin, star of the film. However, one night he experienced quite the fright. While studying the novel for the film, which he was initially hesitant to take part in, his pants fell from their hanger, causing him to jump up and nearly crash his head through the ceiling. He immediately agreed to the role. Spooky? Coming in at number 9, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, 2005. Released in 2005, The Exorcism of Emily Rose follows a lawyer who takes on a negligent homicide case involving a priest who performed an exorcism on a young girl. Now, The Exorcism of Emily Rose very quickly proved itself to be a bone-chilling exorcism movie based on a true case that occurred in the 1970s, to the point that it seemed some of the strange events were rubbing off on the actress. Jennifer Carpenter, who played Emily Rose, encountered a lot of oddities while filming. Her stereo would play at odd hours of the night, often turning itself on and off without being touched. Now, it only happened a few times, but the actress has stated that it did terrify her, with it blasting music really loud, even one time playing Pearl Jam's Alive. Spooky stuff. Coming in at 8, The Conjuring, 2013. I love the Conjuring series, and I'm waiting with bated breath for chapter 3. However, let's discuss the first two movies. The cursed movies. Apparently cursed. The Conjuring was released back in 2013 and was directed by James Wan. It followed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who worked with a family to help free them from a dark presence terrorizing their farmhouse. So, of course, it only makes sense that a movie based on witchcraft and the paranormal would end up carrying some pretty bad vibes. As most know, The Conjuring was based on the true story of what happened when Ed and Lorraine investigated a house that was allegedly haunted by a witch, and everything about the movie seemed cursed, even down to the script. Almost everyone on set claimed to feel unsettled and unusually jittery, with many feeling watched by a menacing presence. One crew member's dog even began to behave strangely, growling at nothing, and once the film wrapped, the dog returned to acting normally. One actress even reported feeling a strange wind that would blow out of nowhere, and when she fell ill and had to go to the hospital, she blamed the strange air that seemed to waft around the set. Vera Farmiga, who played Lorraine Warren, also wasn't entirely comfortable with the film, to the point that she would never bring the script home with her. She even claimed to have found claw marks on the cover of her laptop after returning from shooting. However, the most shocking incident was the random fire that broke out on set. No cause was ever discovered, but most claimed an upset spirit sparked the flames. Coming in at 7, The Possession, 2012. The Possession was a 2012 movie based on the true story of a couple who found themselves as owners of a Dybbuk box. Now, of course, the film didn't include the real box, but instead a fake one. However, the star of the film, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, will tell you something sinister was still at play regardless. He stated, I quote, "I'm a skeptic. Look, I'm not going to lie. That being said, there was something weird going on. Lots of light bulbs exploding, just overall kind of creepiness. Don't mock the box was sort of the mantra that we lived by while we were filming this." However, their mantra didn't seem to help, because during shooting, props would often ignite by themselves. At one point, the real owner of a Dybbuk box offered to give them the box for the shoot. They very quickly declined. thankfully. Coming in at 6, The Crow, 1994. Released in 1994, The Crow starring Brandon Lee follows a man who is brutally murdered and comes back to life as an undead avenger. Now, Brandon was of course the son of famous martial arts actor Bruce Lee, however, tragedy struck while Brandon was filming some of the final scenes for The Crow. One scene involved Brandon being shot with a rubber bullet, however, there was a metal shard lodged in the chamber. When the bullet hit Brandon, it killed him. He was just 28 years old at the time. Now, it was just a freak accident, however, when you couple the tragedy with his father Bruce's death at 32, things get a little creepier. His father Bruce supposedly had premonitions of his death, including one that told him he would only live half the time of his father, who was 64 years old. Brandon himself even admitted to believing in their family's curse. Coming in at 5, Rosemary's Baby, 1968. Rosemary's Baby is a film that is rife with paranormal goings-on and off screen. Directed by Roman Polanski and starring Mia Farrow, the film follows a young couple who move into a new apartment only to be surrounded by peculiar neighbors and strange occurrences. When the wife becomes mysteriously pregnant, paranoia over the safety of her unborn baby quickly sets in. Now, things get very odd very quickly here, so keep up. Anton LaVey, who was rumored to play the devil in Rosemary's Baby, which never happened, he of course went on to found the Church of Satan. He was also friends with Susan Atkins, who would go on to play a role in the murder of Sharon Tate, Polanski's pregnant wife. Producer William Castle also received threatening letters following the film's release, and in turn he suffered from a debilitating health issue soon after, which convinced him the movie was cursed. During one emergency room visit, he apparently screamed, "Rosemary, for God's sake, drop the knife." And finally, the composer of the movie died of a mysterious brain injury after filming. Coming in at 4, The Innkeepers, 2011. The Innkeepers is a fantastic indie horror movie that was primarily filmed in a reportedly haunted hotel in Connecticut, the Yankee Peddler Inn. The Innkeepers follows the final days at the Yankee Peddler Inn as two employees are determined to reveal the hotel's haunted past, during which time they begin to experience disturbing events as old guests begin checking in for a stay. However, it wasn't the film itself that became the main focus, it was the creepy events going on behind the scenes. Director Ty West stated, I quote, "I'm a skeptic so I don't really buy it, but I've definitely seen doors close by themselves, I've seen a TV turn off and on by itself, lights would always burn out in my room. Everyone on the crew has very vivid dreams every night, which is really strange." However, the creepiest story involves the honeymoon suite, which is where the most ghostly activity took place. Ty West picked that room because it was big enough to do a dolly shot. No more thought than that went into it. However, it's then that he and the rest of the cast found out that the honeymoon suite is the most haunted room in real life. That can't just be a coincidence. Were they lured in by the spirits? Not only that, but the star of the film, Sarah Paxton, would wake up every night believing someone was in her room watching her. Spooky. Coming in at 3, The Exorcist, 1974. When The Exorcist was released, audience members fainted and vomited in the movie theaters during the release of William Friedkin's chilling film. When you're dealing with the devil, you know it's not going to be a fun time. The Exorcist of course follows a young girl, Reagan, who becomes possessed by a demon after playing with a Ouija board, and the movie made national news when a church across the street from a theater premiering the film was struck by lightning, causing the cross to fall to the ground. Coincidence? I think not. Weirder still, actor Jack McGowan, who played Burke Dennings in the movie, developed the flu shortly after filming and sadly passed away. According to reports, there are at least 8 deaths associated with the production of The Exorcist, and on top of that, the set for the McNeil home burned down in a studio fire. The only room left untouched by the flames was Reagan's room. Coming in at 2, The Omen, 1976. We've discussed The Omen numerous times on this channel, but for those who don't know, the film follows the mysterious deaths that begin to surround an American ambassador who quickly comes to believe that his child could in fact be the Antichrist. Now, like most of our numbers, The Omen is yet another film that had just as terrifying off-screen tragedies than it did on-screen, and that's saying something. Star of the film Gregory Peck and screenwriter David Seltzer were aboard a plane when it was struck by lightning, during which time producer Harvey Bernard was almost struck by lightning in Rome. Not only that, but several other people were also involved in traumatic events. During filming, Donna's hotel was bombed by the IRA, and Peck almost boarded a flight that crashed and killed everyone. Not only that, but Peck's son committed suicide several months before filming began, and following production, special effects director John Richardson and his assistant Liz Moore were were involved in a serious car accident that decapitated more. All in all, anyone that had any involvement in the making of The Omen met a grisly fate. And finally, coming in at number 1, Poltergeist 1982. Poltergeist to this day is still considered to be one of the scariest films of all time, and not just on screen, off of it as well. The film follows a young family as their lives are turned upside down when malevolent ghosts invade their home and their daughter is abducted by evil spirits. Now, during and after production, many strange events unfolded, leading folks to believe that the movie was cursed. Dominique Dunne, who starred in the film, was murdered by her boyfriend at the age of 22. Julian Beck, who played Henry Kane, died of stomach cancer in 1985. Will Sampson, who played Taylor in Poltergeist 2, died in 1985 of post-operative kidney failure. However, the most bizarre of all of these was the death of Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann in all 3 films. During production of the 3rd film, 12-year-old Heather died whilst filming the final scene of the movie. After developing stomach cramps on set, she quickly took a turn and went into cardiac arrest. She had emergency surgery, but ultimately suffered from septic shock and died on the operating table. Creepier still, in one scene in the film, her brother Robbie has a poster for Super Bowl 22 in his room, which would take place 6 years later in 1988. Heather died the day after the Super Bowl 22 in San Diego, the same city where the game took place. Spooky. Well, there we have it. If you guys agree with our list, were there any cursed movies that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. If you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another Beyond the Screen vid. And until next time, see you later.